Hi, I'm Trey Mayo, Fire Chief for the City of Rocky Mount. Welcome to this edition of Hot Topics. Joining us this month is Kim Wittig. Kim is the Fire and Life Safety Educator for the City of Rocky Mount Fire Department. And for this show, we're going to be talking about our Operation Heartbeat program, which is a citizen, hands-only, compressions-only CPR program. So, Kim, tell us, before we get into the actual program and how it works and what citizens would learn when they go through it. Tell us first about sudden cardiac arrest and how many people in the U.S. suffer sudden cardiac arrest on an annual basis?
Typically, we have in the United States annually 550,000 people who are diagnosed with cardiovascular disease. And of those 550,000, it's very likely that 330,000 of those will actually suffer sudden cardiac arrest. So the numbers are pretty big.
So, 300 to 500,000 people, that's a lot. I don't have to explain that. And as things are right now, based on current data, how many of those that suffer cardiac arrest annually, how many of them live?
The statistics are showing that less than 8% of those 330,000 would actually survive that incident of sudden cardiac arrest. Okay, and we know that to save somebody who has suffered sudden cardiac arrest, and that is a situation where their heart has stopped and they are not breathing. To save that person, we have to get to them in a hurry. So somebody has to recognize that there's a problem, activate the 911 system. You have to have fire and medical personnel on the scene quickly. You have to get them to a medical facility in a hurry, and then be able to do some cardiac interventions at that medical facility, the hospital, and then provide that patient with care following what we know in the business as a return of spontaneous circulation. That is, we have intervened with that medical emergency so that the person's heart starts back beating on its own. That's not enough. They have to have follow-up care to make that happen. But let's talk about the part that the fire department controls. And we do a very good job of getting on the scene when we are notified of an emergency. 90% of the time, we put a unit on the scene in about 6 minutes. One of the things that we are working on now in trying to help that equation, if you will, of activating the 911 system and having early CPR in take effect and getting the person to the hospital and having the after incident care, is increasing the incidence of bystander, what we refer to as bystander citizen CPR. In other words, somebody recognizes some citizen in the community, family member, somebody, friend at church, whatever, recognizes that there's a problem, and they begin CPR before the arrival of emergency responders. So right now, how often is bystander CPR being performed? Based on the data that we can gather, it appears that only about 1/3 of the time that someone is performing bystander CPR. And there's several reasons we think for that. One of them is just the ick factor and having to do mouth-to-mouth on a stranger, and so some people shy away from that. We have a lot of people who are afraid to do CPR because they're afraid they'll do it wrong, or that they're going to hurt the person. So there's a lot of factors working against the victim, so to speak, at that time, just because bystanders aren't comfortable with performing CPR. They don't know exactly what to do. I
got you. And for many, many years, CPR was kind of informally referred to as mouth-to-mouth.
That's correct.
Our Operation Heartbeat takes that ick factor away. If you're willing to put your hands on somebody, you can administer a life-saving intervention. So, tell us about it. Is it effective to do just compressions without doing mouth to mouth.
Right. According to the American Heart Association, it actually is just as effective to do compressions only in those first few minutes before more advanced care can get there, the fire department, EMS, those folks. You made reference to the fact that it'll take us approximately 6 minutes to get there. So in those 6 minutes leading up to our arrival, if you can do just compressions only CPR, you increase their chance of survival by 50%. And the reason for that is you're actually circulating the oxygenated blood that is already in their system. So by just doing the chest compressions, you are helping to circulate the oxygen that was already in their system. And then once the fire department or EMS arrives, they can then in turn provide the oxygen piece to that to help that process along and be more effective.
Gotcha. So what I understood you to say is, at the time that a person suffers sudden cardiac arrest, you know, in effect, the time that they die, they become clinically dead. Their blood contains oxygen. All we need to do is have somebody to manually operate the pump, that is
Correct.
the heart, and circulate that blood around. So that makes sense to me. And there's enough oxygen in the blood, as you stated, to sustain that person's organs as long as somebody is there doing compressions and circulating the blood until fire and medical EMS personnel arrive. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, tell us about the fire department's Operation Heartbeat program.
Our Operation Heartbeat program is one in which we go into the community to teach hands-only CPR and to help educate our citizens that they can be effective bystanders by just doing the compressions only. We actually received a grant from the Rocky Mount Community Foundation for $5,000 to purchase mannequins and educational materials to be able to provide this program. So thanks to the Rocky Mount Community Foundation, we were able to purchase 50 mannequins and can take them out into the community to teach this hands-only approach to CPR.
Okay. About how long does it, you know, I mean, is this what somebody have to give up 3 or 4 hours on a Saturday to make this happen?
No, and actually that's another nice thing about the hands-only CPR. You can teach it in about 20 minutes. And we found that was another kind of restricting factor for people that inhibited them from learning CPR was if you do the full-fledged certification course, it does take several hours. There is a cost factor involved for that certification. The class that we teach is not a certification class, and I get lots of calls about that for people who need the certification piece. The class we teach does not offer any sort of certification. It's just a general knowledge so that you can be an effective bystander to help someone when you see that sudden cardiac arrest happen. It takes 20 minutes to teach just the compressions only method. And what we recommend is that the effective rate to circulate that oxygen we talked about is 100 compressions per minute. And so by having those mannequins on hand and having people actually get their hands on them and teach them correct method for compressions, they see it's very labor intensive. And that it takes a lot of energy and a lot of strength to maintain that rate of 100 compressions per minute. There's lots of educational materials on the American Heart Association's website, and one of the things that's really cool is that 100 compressions per minute is actually to the beat of the Bee Gees song Staying Alive. So if you think about that as you're performing those compressions and can keep the beat with that Staying Alive song, then that will help you to understand and see the compression rate that you're supposed to maintain. I
was sort of sad when we got away from disco anyway, so this is a good way to get back into it. So what we've heard so far is, you know, that this is a 20-minute course, compressions only. No certification, which is when you were saying that, when you were talking about that, I was thinking in my mind, I get that question from time to time when I'm out in the public also, you know, does the fire department deliver CPR certification courses? And we don't, just because of the nature of the time it takes, and you have to have certified instructors and the paperwork, and there's a cost involved, and not only for the fire department, but there's a cost for the citizen as well. I think it's about $25 for printing a certificate and the materials that go with it and that sort of thing. So, you know, but the upshot of all that is if I suffer cardiac arrest, I don't care whether you've got a whether you have a certification or not. I'm concerned about whether you're aggressive, you recognize that there's a problem, and that you do compressions very well. And the curriculum that we teach ensures that the student leaves with that knowledge, that they can recognize a problem, that they are aggressive and confident in their skills, and that they do good compressions. Yeah, and that leads me to one other thing that's a point of information for the viewers is we field the question from time to time about you know, when there's a medical call, why does the fire department go, or you know, do you have to send that big fire truck with 4 people? And the answer is yes, because our benchmark medical call, which medical calls make up about 75% of the nearly 10,000 calls we answer in a year. But our benchmark medical call is a cardiac arrest, and you talked about how labor intensive it is to perform CPR. And because it is so labor intensive, we send a crew of 3 to 4 firefighters so that we can keep somebody fresh on the chest doing compressions all the time, because it is very easy to get tired and the compressions become ineffective. Right. So, you know, for us to provide the life-saving service that we do, it requires a significant amount of manpower to be able to provide CPR at a very high level. So I just wanted to get that out there as a point of information. So now tell us if there are viewers watching us who would like to have this delivered for perhaps their church group, Sunday school class, civic organization, fraternity or sorority, how would they go about getting in contact with us and having this program delivered?
We are actually doing all of our scheduling via our website now, which is www.rockymountfire.org, and there's a link on our homepage where they can schedule any public education, not just the hands-only CPR course. So if you are in need of any sort of public education, or if you want to visit the fire station, or you have a group of kids that you need to have a program for, then visit our website. You can schedule all of our public education programs that way.
And just in the event that somebody is not computer savvy, doesn't have internet access, we always fall back to the old telephone.
That's
What's
correct.
the good telephone number?
You can call me directly at 972-1379, and I can get that scheduled for you.
Okay, great. RockyMountFire.org, 972-1379. Please call Kim and schedule this curriculum for your group. This is an essential life-saving skill. As Kim said, we've taken the ick factor out of it. You can learn how to do effective CPR, compressions only, in 20 minutes. And we'll come to you and we can teach 50 people at the time. So Kim, thank you so much for joining us and sharing the information that you've shared with the viewers. And thank you, viewers, for joining us on this edition of Hot Topics. And we'll see you next month.